Hello lovelies! This is part 1 of my notebook tutorial, and on this one we will concentrate on making the covers, and on the part 1 we will concentrate on making the pages and finishing the book. I will list all the tools that you will need to go through this tutorial with me, so make sure you get everything ready and we can start doing this. Take your base, cardboard or notebook or whatever, and fold it if needed on the place where you plan to put your pages in. It will help your work later on. Then take your tissues. I'm using basic white tissues. You can also use napkins. I'm using white because I'm planning to paint on top of it. Take all the layers of the tissues apart, no matter how many layers there is, mine has 2, and crumble them to be used for later on. You can either tear the tissue or you can use them as a whole. I am going to show you both ways of doing this. Take your glue and take your sponge. This is water mixable glue, so we could mix some water with it, but this time I'm using it just as it is. Start painting your base with the glue. I'm doing it part by part because the glue dries quite fast, and this way I can tear the tissues as I need them. Then take your pieces and start laying them down on the glue. I'm tapping them down with my fingers because that way I have control. I'm moving the tissue on the glue while it's wet because I want wrinkles and I want ridges on it. I want the texture to come on it. And then just cover all of the glue with the tissue and paint some more glue somewhere and continue doing it until you have done all of your base with this technique. And then you let it dry. After it's been dried, we will put the whole tissues on top of it. Again, take your glue and your sponge and start painting on top of the previous layer. And make sure you go over the edges this time and onto the tissue that is over the edges, because this whole tissue layer will also help us clean it up. Then take your tissue and just lay it on top of the glue and pat it down and cover all of it like this, and make sure you let the tissue land on top of the edges because we need it when we are cleaning it up and turning it inside. Then again, the same technique, you take the glue and start painting. Before this step, if you feel that you have too much tissue to turn inside, you can tear some of it off. Then you cover all of the base with this glue again and let it dry. Now it's all cleaned and settled and it's ready to be painted. I am going to paint it white because I want all the brown and all the tissue to be covered. I recently painted my walls, so I'm using the white wall paint. But whatever paint you are using, make sure it has coverage, because you want that. Then again we are using the sponge, and you just start tapping. And tap carefully. You want all the ridges and all the wrinkles to be covered with paint. You don't want to see any of the base in anywhere. And this layer of paint will show you why we did the previous layers with the tissue. It will pop up the texture that we are looking for. All those wrinkles coming up. Then cover the whole of the thing, the base, with paint, and let it dry. I let it dry overnight because it was wall paint. Then we start putting color on it. I'm using watercolors, and the first color that I will be using is yellow. And again, I'm using the sponge. I really like the sponge. And this time again, make sure you cover all of the white with the yellow. You don't want any white showing on the wrinkles or on the ridges. Then let it dry. Then take dark brown and start tapping it on top of the yellow. This time you don't have to worry about covering all of it. You have to cover most of it, but you can leave those little wrinkle lines, little holes there. And make sure you let the color stay uneven. I'm using watercolors because it lets me decide how deep the color is when I am using it and doing it. So that there's going to be parts where the color is deeper and parts where the color is lighter. And then cover all of it again and let it dry. Then you take a lighter reddish brown, and this time I am using more water because I want even more contrast within the depth of colors on it, and this way it lets me control it more. And start tapping it all around. And again, you don't have to completely cover the brown. You can let the rich lines and spots, you can let them show. And make sure to keep the color uneven. And if you want the base yellow to be seen, you have to wet your sponge a little bit and then wipe on top of it wherever you want the yellow to show more. You just wipe it down and it will show on top of the ridges. Now let it dry. It's all dried up. We have a spray lacquer matte paint that I'm gonna spray it with. And this is our end results. It looks really nice, and to me it looks old leathery. I used 2 layers of lacquer paint, and this I will show you close up of the texture and the color we got. And I want to thank you, Hannah, because the word that I gave you that I will do this kept nagging in my head and pushed me to do this. So thank you for that push. And I also said that I had a ready-made notebook that I didn't like the covers, and I used the same technique to redo the covers, and it came awesome as well. I used the same colors as on the previous one. And it came out really, really nicely. I'm really liking this technique a lot. And I glued the first page to the cover, so it covers all the paints. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this.